Okay, so today we're going to do multiplying polynomials. Again, this is from Kuta Software, one of my favorites, and this is page 15 in your notes if you still have those. We're going to just remind you of something that you already know how to do. Question number 1, you should see it as the distributive property, which we've talked about. So that means that you're going to use the 6v times 2v, and then you're going to use the 6v times 3. So 6v times 2v, 6 times 2 is 12. And remember that v times v is v squared. So unlike when we were adding and subtracting polynomials, I said if you're combining like terms, you don't change the exponents. On this problem, it's not an adding or subtracting problem when it's 6v times 2v. It's a multiplication problem, which means that you do have to change the exponents. Because remember, v times v, that first rule of exponents says that you add the exponents and end up with v squared. And then I have to do the second part, which is 6v times 3, so that would be plus 6 times 3 is 18v. And I'm done. Not too hard. So, again, if it's a question like number 2, that's just the distributive property. So that's 2x times negative 2x, which would make that a negative 4. And again, x times x is x squared. And then 2x times 3, and that would be a negative 3, so that would be a negative 6. And just x. So this is a review. We've already done this. We've been doing this since chapter 1. Problem number 5 is not a review, but probably if I were to say something to you in class, you would all go, oh yeah, I remember that. So from high school or from your last instructor, you might have remembered the word FOIL. FOIL stands for first times first, outside times outside, inside times inside, and last times last. And so this is a way that a lot of the students remember it. I also remember it as just a double distributive property. So this parentheses has a 2n, which needs to get multiplied by the 6n. And then it has a 2n that needs to get multiplied by the 1. It also has a 2 that gets to multiplied by the 6n, and then it has a 2 that gets multiplied by the 1. So that's where these 4 pieces come from. 2n times 6n is actually the first one in the first parentheses times the first one in the second parentheses. No matter how you look at it, you're going to get 12n squared. And then the outside times the outside says take these 2 pieces because they're on the outside and multiply them. So 2n times a positive 1 is a positive 2n. And then the inside times the inside says take those 2 because they're inside the parentheses and get a positive 2 times a positive 6n, which is a positive 12n. And then the last times the last, which would be the last one in this one, times the last one in that one, which would just be plus 2. Now, if you'll notice, these are exactly the lines that I have drawn when I looked at it as if it were a double distributive property. So I don't care which way you do it. Whichever one you work with, that's fine. There are other ways that you can do this. Most of the videos I'm going to do that is going to refer back and forth to FOIL. I'm not done yet, though, because I need to always make sure I simplify my answers. So that's going to be 12n squared. There are no other n squareds, combining like terms. But there is a 2n and a 12n. They're both positive, so I'm going to combine like terms there and get 14n. And then there is nothing that I can combine with that, too. So I end up with 12n squared plus 14n plus 2. That's really all there is to it. Now all I can do is I can change the numbers that are in here, I can change the signs that are in here, but I never change the first, outside, inside, last. So let's try another one on page 15. Let's look at number 9. First times first. 6p times 5p is 30. And again, I'm multiplying. So that would be p squared. Outside times outside would be a negative 8 times 6p, which would be a negative 48p. Inside times inside would be a positive 40p. And last times last would be a negative 64. And then I need to make sure that I combine like terms. There is nothing that's going to go with that 30p squared. If I combine these two, it's going to be minus 8p. And then there is nothing that goes with that negative 64. Now I'm going to tell you that this structure that I'm using right here to come up with the answer is going to be hugely important in the next chapter. So I need to make sure that you understand where these numbers are coming from when it comes to what the original problem asked to do. Okay, so let's try it again. Number 11, same page, number 15 on your notes. So I take first times first, which is 16a squared, outside times outside, which is a negative 10a, inside times inside, which is a negative 8a, and last times last was a positive 5. And then I go ahead and simplify my answer. There's no other a squareds. There's negative 18a plus 5. So you'll notice on page 14 that basically there's more multiplication problems, but they look a little bit different. So they're still multiplication problems. Number 13 is a multiplication problem because if you remember what it means for something to be squared, that means that I write it down twice and I multiply. So first times first is 16p. Outside times outside is negative 4p. Inside times inside is negative 4p. And last times last is a positive 1. Combine our like terms and I end up with 16, forgot my p squared, minus 8p plus 1. And I just keep on doing that. First times first, outside times outside, inside times inside, last times last, and I combine like terms if I can. So page 16 in your notes, number 19, needs me to go back to what I said before. I considered a problem like number 17 a double distributive property because there were 2 here and there were 2 here. Then I have to consider number 19 as a triple distributive property. So I'm going to have to multiply this times this, and then that one, and then that one. Then I'm going to have to come back and I'm going to have to do those 3 as well. So there are 6 parts to my answer. So the 4a times the 6a squared would make it 24a squared. Sorry, that would be a cube, thanks. And then this would be 4a times negative a, which would be negative 4a squared. And then this would be 4a times 2, which would be plus 8a. Now, some students, when they work the next part, they just keep it on a string. I sort of like to line them up when I do that, just so that I know when I combine them later, life is easier. So if you want to keep on writing them out as one long string and then combine like terms you can, you're going to see me do it as a 2-layer problem. So 2 times 6 would be 12, and that would be a squared. And I'm going to combine that with the a squared that I already have, and that would be a positive. 2 times negative a would make it minus 2a, and again, that's going to line up with my other a. And 2 times 2 would give me 4, and there is nothing there for that to line up with. And again, I just think this is neater. I think it's cleaner. I think it's easier. All I have to do now is go through and just combine my like terms. And again, when I'm adding and subtracting, I don't change the exponents. When I'm multiplying, I do. So my final answer then is going to be 24a cubed plus 8a squared plus 6a plus 4. Okay, and you'll notice that all of the problems on this worksheet have at least 2, 4, or 6 kinds of multiplication problems for us to do. If we turn over to page 17, again, we've talked about a problem like this, but let's go ahead and look at it. So that would be 2k squared plus 1 times 2k squared plus 1, since that's a square. First times first would give me 4k to the 4th. Outside times outside would give me positive 2k squared. Inside times inside would give me positive 2k squared. And last times last is going to give me positive 1. Combine like terms. Again, you should notice at this point that I just keep doing the same old thing. The only difference that some of you are going to run across is a question like number 7. Some are still going to do the same thing. I don't treat these like these are different. You'll notice that the instructions on this worksheet, or the title of it, is multiplying special cases. And I don't really know that I consider number 7 that special. First times first gives me x squared. Outside times outside gives me positive 5x. Inside times inside gives me minus 5x. And last times last gives me negative 25. If I combine like terms, that'll give me x squared. This actually turns into 0, so I don't even have a 0 or an x, so I don't really even have to write that. So I'm going to end up with that. Now again, somebody's going to say, but wasn't it that? And I'm going to say, but these two are the same thing. And again, later on in chapter 5, it might be important that you recognize that this is here, even though I didn't actually write it in the answer. So, this lesson is all about multiplying with polynomials. If you can remember the distributive property, like we had on question number 1, then that's part of it. And then if you can remember or use the FOIL to come up with however many parts to the answer that you need. And then as long as you recognize this square, means write it down twice and just do the work, you should be able to do fine with this. All right, keep working and stay safe. Bye.